Good morning. If I look like a wet wharf rat, it's because I walked late this morning. And I didn't get up in time to catch the early morning cool. I usually try to wrap up my walk around sunup, and I kind of walk in the dawn where I can see the cars can see me, but it's not sunup yet. It's in the gray. And uh, and I walked a little later, and I got a little hot because it's even though we're having cool mornings, it's still still summer, still summer. So anyway, we will jump right into this. Uh, the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 19. We yesterday Jesus is still before Pilate, and he takes him back inside with him after the Jewish leaders, yell that hey, he made himself out to be the Son of God, and by our law he ought to die. Just picking up from yesterday, just briefly, beginning in verse 8. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was the more afraid. He wanted to let Jesus go, remember? And went again into the judgment hall and saith unto Jesus, Whence art thou? But Jesus gave him no answer. Where'd you come from? Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee and have power to release thee? Psst, psst, Jesus, I'm trying to let you go. I need a little help here. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me except it were given thee from above. It's in God's hands, Jesus says. And therefore he that delivered me unto thee hath the greater sin. Pilate, you may be at fault, but their fault is worse. On the other hand, Pilate, if you decide with him, your fault will be just as bad as theirs. And of course it was. You see, it doesn't do any good. Good morning, Bill. It doesn't do any good to talk. You can talk a good game. Pilate was wanting to let him go, but he didn't. His wife told him to let him go. His gut told him to let him go. His sense of justice told him to let Jesus go. But the crowd, which will become obvious here in a minute. You see, you can preach all you want to, but if you don't act, you're as useless as tits on a boar hog. I've learned that the hard way. You have to live your life sacrificially for Jesus Christ, or the whole exercise is pointless. You just, you're on a stationary bike, bud. You might lose a few pounds, but you'll never get out of the bedroom. You're still on the stationary bike. You got to be on a real bike to go anywhere. So talk is cheap. Doesn't cost anything to say I love you. There's nothing to saying I love you. But you see, it's the doing, the showing, the giving, the sustaining of that love that matters. Doesn't do you any good to tell somebody you love them if you don't show them. Didn't do Pilate any good to know that Jesus was innocent unless he proclaimed him innocent and let him go. And he had the power to do that. Jesus said it plainly, Thou couldst have no power at all against me except it were given thee from above. Now, verse 12, and where we pick up today, and from thenceforth Pilate sought to release Jesus. But the Jews cried out, saying, again, the religious leaders of the Jews, we're talking about less than 1% of the people. These are the rich people that ran everything and decided everything. The scribes, the Pharisees, the lawyers, the Sadducees, the Herodians, the chief priest, the high priest and his family, the court of Herod, and all of the merchants and the rich people who handled all the money changers and the keepers of the flocks and the herds that owned, the owners of the flocks and the herds. Just like in any society, the ruling class decides things and tells everybody else what to do. This was the ruling class that was demanding. So you might have well said, therefore Pilate sought to release him, but the ruling class cried out, because people try to make this anti-Semitic, and it's not. Jesus was a Jew. Jesus is a Jew. When he returns, he will be a Jew. He will sit on the throne of his father David and reign with a rod of iron for 1,000 years, and the law shall go out forth from Zion. Oh, I can't wait. I want to get to see all that. Not in this body either. I'll be taller then. But the Jews cried out, saying, if thou let this man go. Why are they saying this? Because they know that Pilate wants to let Jesus go. They can tell by the way he's acting. They're not stupid. These are very smart people. Their whole plan is to get Rome to crucify Jesus, so the people won't blame the temple management. They won't blame the CEO when the company goes belly up. They'll blame somebody else. They'll blame the Romans. That's what this is all about. In Luke, it explains it perfectly clear. He said they sought to catch something out of his mouth, out of Jesus' mouth. They sought to catch something out of his mouth. Why? That they might accuse him to the governor. And this was only less than a year into his 3.5+ year ministry. So from the beginning, they were trying to figure out some way for the Romans to kill him. And so they were filled with madness and sought how they might destroy him. This is from the first miracle. Anyway, if thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whoever maketh himself a king speaketh against Caesar. What are they telling him here? Are they just telling him something he already knows? Pilate already knows that if anybody speaks against Caesar, he's no friend to Caesar's. If he makes himself a king, he's no no friend to Caesar's. Well, Pilate knows that Jesus is not trying to proclaim himself king. He said, my kingdom is not from hence. If it were, then would my servants fight? You got no quarrel with me, Pilate. I'm not trying to take your job or Caesar's job. That'll all come in time, but you'll all be dead and the Roman Empire will be rubble when it happens. He didn't tell him all that, but that's the truth of it. Now, Pilate already knew that this was true. Whoever makes himself a king is no friend of Caesar's. Whoever lets Jesus go is no friend of Caesar's. Now, he knows all this, but what they're telling him, why they're telling him, what they're saying is this: Pilate, if you let Jesus go, Tiberius is going to find out about it. Good old Caesar, the Emperor Tiberius. We're going to, matter of fact, we're going to send out dispatches. We're going to send out not one messenger, but a bunch of them. And one of them will get to Tiberius. They'll get to the court. We hear he is at, where did they go? I can't remember where they went. It was somewhere on the Mediterranean they went. My brain fails me. Anyway, they had a retreat that they went to, the Roman emperors went to, that was on the sea and had cool breezes. It was a nice place to be. It'll probably come to me after this program is over. The point of it is what they're saying is, you're in control here today, Pilate. You can do whatever you want to, but if you let Jesus go, we're going to tell Tiberius. We're going to tell Tiberius that you're not a friend of Caesar's. We're going to tell Tiberius that you let an insurrectionist go, that you let a rebel go, that you let a man who made himself a king go. And we know that anybody who maketh himself a king speaketh against Caesar. Now, we're going to send messengers to tell Pilate that, to tell Caesar that. Now, Pilate, you may think you can stop us, but you can't. because we'll send out men from Caesarea Philippi. We'll send out men from Joppa. We will send out men from Tarshish. We will go all around the Mediterranean. We'll send men from a dozen different points, and one of them will get through, and they will tell in Tiberius's ear that you are no friend of Caesar's. And he will come down on you like a herd of turtles. He'll be slow getting there, but the justice will be swift. And he'll put you up on one of them crosses. Except they didn't do that to Romans. They didn't do that to Roman citizens. And what they would do is they would tell Pilate, said, okay, either we're going to kill you or you got to kill yourself. And so he would take his sword and either that or, drink hemlock or something. They drank poison a lot. Rarely they hung themselves, but usually they just took their sword and killed themselves. It's ironic that the Roman sword was of the length that it was great for short combat. It was great for in-close combat, but it wasn't a long sword. It was a short sword. Double-edged, heavy short sword. But it was about the length of a man's arm. A man could hold it. If he couldn't hold it by the handle, he could put his fingers of both hands on each side of the haft. And well, that's the way, that was Roman justice. They didn't crucify governors and proconsuls and tribunes and stuff like that. But they said, you know what, you need to go fall on your sword. As a matter of fact, that's where those days, those ancient times, that's what that means, falling on your sword. We still use that today. When somebody takes the rap, when somebody takes the blame, they fall on their sword. So what they're saying is, Pilate, you might try to stop us from getting word to Caesar, but we'll get word to him. And when he hears, he'll send. And when he sends, they will eventually come. And somebody who outranks you will get you in a corner and say, okay, this is your last day on earth. You want to go say goodbye to your wife, or you want to do it right now? That's what they're telling him. If you let him go, we will turn you over to Caesar and tell him whatever it takes to get you dead. And that's when Pilate breaks. He knew it was right to free Jesus. He knew that Jesus was innocent. He knew that Jesus had done nothing wrong. He knew this by the way his accusers acted, the Jewish leadership. He knew the way they acted that Jesus was innocent. He knew by the way Jesus acted that Jesus was innocent. He knew by Roman law Jesus was innocent. He knew by his own gut feeling that Jesus was innocent. His own desire was to let him go, and he knew from his wife. Remember yesterday, she had a dream about Jesus and sent word to her husband and said, don't have anything to do with this guy. Let him go. Just say, just put paid to it. Get rid of him. Get him out of there, but let him go. Set him free. No matter what the people say. Pilate knew all that. But he valued his job and his life more. And in his position, his job and his life were the same thing. Capri was where they went. I just remembered it was Capri. That's where the emperors had their retreat. I kept wanting to say Calais, but that's in France. Capri. They named some pants after them, I think. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, the Jews' threat to him that they were going to tell Caesar and Caesar would kill him. There wouldn't be any exile for him. There wouldn't be any retreat for him. He would die. It was a lot worse than getting fired. A lot worse than getting fired. When Pilate, therefore, in verse 13, heard that saying, he brought Jesus, that saying, thou art not Caesar's friend. When Pilate, therefore, heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth and sat down in the judgment seat. He becomes official now. He quits arguing with the people. he quits interrogating Jesus and he sits down in the official judgment seat. He sits down as the voice of Caesar, as the fist of Rome in Jerusalem. He sits on the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover in about the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, and this is how we know he's changed his mind. When he knew that Jesus was an innocent man, he brought him out scourged, hoping that the scourging would convince them that that was punishment enough. But they refused that. And when he brought him out all beaten up, wearing the purple, crowned with the thorns, blood dripping from one end to the other, he said, behold the man. Yeah. Now that he's the judge instead of the conciliator, instead of the Savior, instead of the deliverer of Jesus, he becomes the judge of Jesus. He sits down in the judgment seat in the pavement called Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover about the 6th hour. And he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. Before it was behold the man, the innocent man. And now it's behold your king, the man who made himself king of the Jews, the man who by making himself king of the Jews speaketh against Caesar. He's not a man anymore, he's a threat to Rome. Jesus, because of Pilate's bad decision, Jesus went from being an innocent man to being a pretender to the throne of Caesar, and condemned Pilate as the judge with that mindset, and knowing that that's how Tiberius Caesar would see it also, had to side with the crowd to save his job and thereby his life. I'm not saying it was the right decision, that's just why he did it that way. In just a few minutes, Pilate went from behold the man to behold your king. But that's how politics works. They say anything they can to keep their job. That's what Pilate did. Oh, and by the way, his life too. We'll pick this up tomorrow.